This is Chris Robinson, and this is the Real Conversation Show. The idea we had when we came up with this show is we wanted something where we can showcase young millennials of color and our views on issues, our take on what's going on in the world. So this is our first episode. So if you like it, follow us on Facebook, on our YouTube channel, and the show will be in a podcast version on SoundCloud. So today, there's me. We have
Daniela
and Jasmine.
Ken.
So right off the bat, well, we were going to do our first show before the presidential election. We were going to talk about things leading up to it. As it turns out, it's after. So first question I want to have for everybody is, number one, do you care? Anybody?
Not really. Not really.
So why is it you don't care, Daniela?
I do vote, and I do vote, but I don't really, the presidential election doesn't really get me. I'm more for the local state, and I just really didn't care.
So like when you say, all right, so when you say you don't care, do you think that it would not have made much of a difference regardless who won?
Yes.
Do you think that, okay, and why? I mean, so so the thing is, well, actually, let's first go around and see what everybody else feels.
Okay.
How do you feel?
And I'm going to say I don't care as well.
Okay.
Simply because being a minority, I know that no one's going to do anything for us until we do something for ourselves. So that's why I never get so caught up in it. Because it doesn't matter who's president, we're still going to be at the bottom of the barrel. So that's why I don't care.
Kenny?
I would say I do care, but at the same time, I also agree with both of them because the state and local levels have the most power. That's what's going to affect you. That's what's going to affect us in Rockledge and Palm Bay. We have more power than the federal courts and the federal powers. So I know this last election, a lot of people didn't vote at all. They didn't vote presidential, but it's sad because they also didn't vote state and local, which some things were passed that shouldn't have been passed, and there's some things that could have been passed that weren't because they just felt like, oh, I'm not going to vote for the president. So state and local are the most important. Presidential, they have powers here and there, but I still do care, coming from a military background, things like that. That can affect my family, or like as you see some of the stuff going on now, it's affecting other people's families. So even if I'm not affected directly, I still make sure I keep an eye out just to watch and see what's going on. But I'm with them. I'm mostly all about the state and local. So,
So from my perspective, I care a lot. I think it's hugely important. I think that if we aren't involved, then you don't have a voice. And what I will agree with is that it doesn't make as big a difference as everybody thinks that it does. Because at the end of the day, politicians, money is donated. And when that money is donated, the politicians are going to do what they're told to do by the people who donated the money.
Most definitely.
Across the board, whether it's Republican, Democrat,
Yes.
whether it's local or state, and a lot of local is like that.
Most
Right.
definitely.
However, I think when you're choosing between, my view of the election is you're choosing between the lesser of two evils, right?
Right.
But it's a choice on such a large scale that because there's a huge difference between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump.
Yes.
And so this is why I don't understand. So if you agree that there's a huge difference, right? And it's someone who's making massive decisions about the state of not just our country but the world, because the President of the United States is the most powerful politician on the planet.
Right.
So even if the differences were small and we're agreeing that the differences are large, you can't say that it's not important.
The differences aren't really that large, especially when it comes to black people.
I would argue that, I would argue that the differences are.
Okay.
And then it's bigger than race. Because where we are now, because the cool thing is that we are doing the show a few days after like a week or so after the election.
Yes.
We can see the direction that we're going.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
And there's a strong possibility, the fact that he's been hostile, Donald Trump has been hostile, we can call him 45, has been hostile towards Australia, one of our biggest allies, has been extremely hostile towards Iran, who we've been on the brink of potentially going to war with for a very long time. Hostile towards North Korea, which we've always been hostile with North Korea. But what we have now is a situation where we have an egomaniac in North Korea and an egomaniac in the United States, both without self-control.
Right.
So we're seriously could potentially be on the verge of world war.
Yes.
And that's the kind of thing where that transcends anybody's race. And if you have, maybe in the financial state of Black America, which I agree is hugely important, right? It may not make that big a difference. But I think not voting at all throws the baby out with the bathwater. Because now we're in a position where all these other things may not necessarily be Black issues, but if we go to war, by the way, it's minority kids that end up going to war.
Right.
And then it also affects the economy, which affects all of us. So
I voted, but I only voted because I know what people before us did and were not able to vote. That's the only reason why I vote, and I exercise my right. And I vote because I talk noise about what happened and what the result of this person did by not voting. So I did vote, and I do vote.
Right.
But do I care that much about it to argue all day? Like you see people on Facebook going at it. Obama this, Trump that. No.
Right.
Have a great day.
That's right.
I don't care that much.
No, but even like the arguing about it, I can totally understand that. Like me, I like to argue about it. Like the little details of it matter to me.
Yeah.
But even if, but I get frustrated when people say they don't vote, right? Because
I don't vote.
it takes my experience, especially like because we're in kind of a small city, is it took me 20 minutes to vote, right? So 20 minutes
Took me 6 minutes.
every couple of years to guide, even if it's, so say we're at this trajectory, and who you vote for turns the country only 2 or 3 degrees in either direction. Taking 10 minutes out of one day every 2 years to make that slight change over the course of history could mean the difference between slavery and ruin and everybody living on the moon with the flying Bentley. So, over the span of human history. And I think that that's something that I don't know. I know that there's been a big movement of young Black people who don't, like you said. So you're not alone at all.
No.
Who just don't vote.
Because you know why? When Obama first ran in 2004, right? I campaigned 2008. 2008.
Yeah.
I campaigned and had so many people go out and vote. I'm talking about people that never voted before. I drove my friends, my family, everybody. I did this the whole time he was in office, both times. And I feel like I didn't get any results, the results that I wanted for voting for Obama. Not saying that he didn't do what he was supposed to do. He did what he could, but
when I begin to care is when I see a president reverse everything put in place to help us stay where we are. When I see them reverse to how we're systemically oppressed,
right?
That's when I will care and I'll be like, hey, let's go and vote. When I see them taking these, reversing these extra steps taken to deny us of these business loans, deny us, and when I see somebody, my man Bernie was really advocating to cut down these student loans and help us to go to, when I see one of the presidents doing that,
then I'll get back on it.
I'm all for it. I'm
but
out
even
there with my
Obama
picket signs and whatever else.
We were systematically oppressed. So,
but I think that's so.
Meaning politics does not change our oppression. That's what I'm saying.
No, I don't. I think that. I think that it can over time.
How much
and
more
I think
time
that
do we
again.
need?
No, I think. Here's what I think, and we'll get into that. As we go down.
Okay.
There are things that we need to do as a community,
most definitely,
that transcend politics.
Yes.
And the politics is a small thing that we have to do in the meantime.
Most definitely.
Because it's a part of being a citizen.
Right.
And like you said, it's what people fought for us to have the right to do.
Right.
Now, I know a lot of people put pressure on President Obama and what he did for the black community, right? And I completely understand the arguments all the way around that he did absolutely nothing. All he did was come in and continue life as a normal politician and all that. But what I think is interesting is, as black people, especially millennials, we always talk about the people trying to put us in a box, right?
Right.
And people have certain stereotypes and expectations of us. What's interesting to me is when President Obama gets elected, he's a politician who happens to be black.
Right.
By expecting him to do anything different than what any other politician would do because he's black
Right.
That's wrong.
is just as ignorant.
Yeah.
Is anybody expecting you
Right.
to eat fried chicken and watermelon because you're black?
And
Well,
I never
So-
looked at him as, oh, this is a black president. I always just saw him as a president. They all are the same to me. If you're not, like I said, reversing these things that are put into place so that we can help ourselves,
Most definitely.
I'm not looking for any of them to
Handout.
help us or give us anything.
Handouts.
Give us the
exactly.
resources to get what we need, like everybody else gets the
Exactly.
resources. That's
exactly.
it. I don't care if it was a green man that did it. If
Exactly.
he did it, where's my picket sign? Because I'm all for him.
I agree.
Or her.
I agree.
You seem like you're thinking.
No,
What do you like?
no, you're right. No, I'm because they're all of y'all are hitting great points. I'm agreeing with everybody on this one.
Because I think one of the issues is, as a politician, I think President Obama's a brilliant politician.
Yes.
And he was able to. I think if he had been white,
Yes.
we wouldn't be having any of these conversations. It would be the Affordable Care Act was the
Amazing.
farthest thing to be done in healthcare by any president in
Right.
recent time.
Right.
You would think that as far as wars are concerned, we've still gotten into wars. The military-industrial complex is still a huge part of our country. However, we don't have massive amount of ground troops to the level that we did
Right.
before he took office. I think
Gay
the
marriage.
economy, we have rights for the LGBTQ community. We have the economy went from collapsing in 2008
Yes.
to the stock market hit the highest point it's ever hit in the last week or so.
Yes.
So
Market's
I think,
back up for home buying.
but what's fascinating is, again, this was our first black president, right?
Yes.
And the most disrespected.
And the most disrespect, exactly.
Because he's
And
black.
but here's the thing.
Yes.
Also, he did an excellent job, right? And somehow we've managed to play ourselves into being mad at him for just doing his job
Sometimes
and
we're
doing
never
what he's
satisfied.
always doing what any politician would have done in that situation.
Right.
And there were certain points where he did talk about race. There was at no point, what president before him could come out after, I believe it was when Trayvon Martin was shot,
Yes.
and said, that could have been me.
Yes.
Having that, if in my personal opinion, and I know this is setting the bar way lower than anybody else's expectation, him being elected, being able to get through the 8 years without scandal,
Yes.
to be able to bring the economy back, and to have those few moments that he did have to speak to young black people, to open someone else's mind, I genuinely feel like that's all he had to do. I know, I'm not saying that that's all I expected and that's all I wanted, but for me at this juncture, now that he's no longer president, that all 8 years happened, there were no disasters, and they're young black kids that the only president they've ever known
Right.
was a black man.
Most definitely.
Yeah. Where I disagreed
am-
with a lot of the comments, like on Facebook, is where you see all down, he didn't do anything for black people. But did you expect for Bill Clinton to do anything for black people?
Right.
Did you say that Bush didn't do anything for black people?
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, that's not what his presidency was about, doing things for black people. Like, I just don't agree with that.
And nobody's ever going to do anything for black people because we don't practice group politics.
Boom.
We don't do things collectively. So no one's ever going to do anything for black people. They talk about homosexuals. Homosexuals come out in packs. Like, you can't disrespect these people without it being everywhere.
Because they stick
Because
together.
they stick together.
Whole community.
And they're going to get what they want. And, you know, I respect them. I respect them for that.
Because, I mean, I don't know. My issue is, I've never heard of a president come out and say, okay, Hispanic people, you're going to get this.
Mm-hmm.
And white people, you're going to get this, which that's how it works out. But,
Yes.
but nobody ever comes out and says that.
Right.
So this thing where, like, our expectation was, we have a black president.
Exactly.
Saving
Okay,
us.
now where's our thing?
Right.
Right? Is a completely unfair expectation in the
Most
first
definitely.
place.
Most
Yes.
definitely.
And then the second piece to that is what he did do, and we were talking about this earlier
Mhm.
before we started, is if we were in a position to take advantage of the things that did happen.
Mhm.
So, as you all know, I sell health insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not black people coming to take advantage of the Affordable Care Act in
Mhm.
large numbers.
Right.
It's just not.
Mm-hmm.
So, the economy exploded,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're not involved in high enough numbers in the stock market
Mm-hmm.
to where, as a community, we're making money when that happens.
Most definitely.
Right.
So things have been done for people,
Mm-hmm.
but as a community, we haven't put ourselves in the
Exactly.
position
Most
to
definitely.
get out of it.
Most
So
definitely.
people talk about reparations,
Mhm.
Yes.
right? And I'm one who, I know that's a big thing. But here's my concern though, and it's like all these other benefits, right?
Right.
If reparations were to come tomorrow,
Mhm.
right? What nobody talks about is a dollar bill stays in the black community for 6 hours.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
Hours.
if however many billions of dollars were handed to the black community in the form of reparations,
Mm-hmm.
within 6 hours,
We'll be right back
that
at
would
square one.
essentially function as a stimulus package for white America.
Yeah, most definitely.
And that's where financial literacy
Exactly.
plays a huge part. We do not, and many of us, a lot of us don't have the parents that had a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't teach you how to deal with your money. They didn't teach you how to value that dollar.
We're miseducated.
And then we can back it up and say, a lot of us, like if you have a fish market, I'm going to be looking at like, oh, look, Chris is driving that new Benz. I'm going to go open a fish market. Instead of us saying, hey, Chris, let's partner up together and open a bigger fish market. So
Mhm.
now we both will eat. And then maybe this person can come. No, we want 4 different rows of fish markets.
Competition.
Why?
Sounds like a church.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. But like
Let
you
me
were
take a
saying, Chris,
sip.
if even if we were to receive reparations, we right back at square one. And for instance, take someone, a minority who wins the lottery for $6-7 million, and they're broke in 2 or 3 years. It didn't matter that you received that money because you didn't possess the financial literacy to keep it.
Take that
So-
lady who kept bailing her boyfriend out of
Uh-huh.
jail and bought the house and the cars and things,
Mm-hmm.
but yet she didn't have the money to pay her mortgage. How does that make sense?
Most definitely. We have to start pushing financial literacy on our kids, even
Yes.
on the elderly, on the adults. We have to grasp that because if
It's
not,
too many of us that are, too many of our great grandparents and the elderly that are 70 years old living in apartments.
Yep.
Grandma should have owned that house 30 years ago.
Mhm.
So, and it really makes me sad to see that.
Most
Grandma
definitely.
should not be struggling with her little $1,500 a month
Nope.
Social Security check
Nope.
to pay this rent.
I'm telling you, we have to push financial literacy.